Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the podcast. I was trying to figure out what to talk about on this episode, and honestly, I was struggling this week because I'm used to sharing like what's happening and what I've done about it. And right now, I'm kind of in an assessment stage, so I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do, what action I'm going to take. I'm just thinking about everything in terms of what I want my life to look like. I'm constantly assessing and reassessing. And I'm weighing some of the choices that I've made lately against how they support the vision I have for my future life as a stay-at-home billionaire-ess. And so I feel like there are certain things that are on track, yes, in terms of the things that I want, but there's some things that feel a little off track. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. In terms of finance and work, of course, those are the things that I'm usually talking about. Those are the things that I want to evaluate. I'm in the process of deciding. And so thinking out loud sometimes is helpful. I think saying things out loud. I talked last week about there's a power in naming things and a power in putting words to things. And I really believe strongly in that. So I'm going to talk it through with y'all because I know many of you guys are trying to figure out your next steps in life and your career and how to make changes in what you currently already have in place. And the number one way to do this is to assess frequently and then make the appropriate tweaks as you go along. I want to break this up into sections. As it relates to career, I want to talk about assessing if your job is the right job for you. It's something that I'm thinking about right now. And we can use this same assessment process to think about jobs you're applying to, ones you've recently started, even ones you've been in for a while. So this process is not limited to any stage. It's applicable to every stage. I want to also talk about it in the context of your whole life vision, because if you're searching for a job without context, for sure you'll not end up in the right place for you. A lot of people start their first jobs with the intention of, I just need a job, I want to get in. And then they end up leaving that job, especially within the first 5 years of their career, because they were too hyper focused on checking the box of getting a job and not thought about it in terms of full picture of the life that they wanted for themselves, the things that they envisioned. I also want at the end of this to help you create your bucket list, if you will, your desired life list. I do this every once in a while on the podcast. I have a couple previous episodes where I talk about designing your perfect life, things like that. And I just reread one of my bucket lists and it made me think I should share this with you guys because the way I wrote it and the way I reflected, the things that are on the list are things that are still true today. Everything I listed is something I still want or am still working on, and I need to be more intentional about executing it for sure. To start, I want to be clear as we're doing this assessment that an assessment is not the same thing as a criticism. I have a very judgy amygdala who is prone to seeing things from a deficit point of view. And I don't feel good when I sit around shoulding on myself. I'm not cursing. I'm saying the word should, SHOULD. Wow, I almost couldn't spell that. As in, I should have, I should be, but I'm not. When I am assessing, I have to purposely look at both the positives and the negatives. What's going well? What needs more focus? Otherwise, the whole evaluation tends to fall apart, and I never want to do it again. Remember that we as humans avoid discomfort. So if you're trying to build a new habit in a way that creates great discomfort, you're likely not going to maintain that habit. I think about exercise a lot. When you're pushing yourself and you feel terrible during the exercise and you think, oh, I'm just going to do this until, those are the kinds of exercises you don't end up maintaining, right? You have to enjoy some part of it. So I always want to have evaluations as a habit in my life so that I could be moving in the direction of my dreams. And so I don't want to overwhelm myself or create too much discomfort in creating that habit. It's helpful for me to break it up into categories. I can easily get overwhelmed if I'm looking at my life as a whole and then deciding that, oh my God, nothing is working. Something my brain likes to do. Tricky, tricky. Instead, I find if I break things into categories like career, personal life, social life, health, then it's easier to tackle each category, make assessments, and then make tangible actions from that space. Let's start with the work evaluations. Let's just get into it. I have three current income sources. My goal for this income is to support a life of travel, experiences, etc. Those things cost. I get excited about opportunities to earn because I know that that is contributing to the life that I have been building, which is allowing me to work 6 to 9 months out of the year, which means taking vacation 3 to 6 months out of the year. So, in terms of income, the three sources, coaching provides two sources. I coach my own private clients, and I'm associate coach for the Dr. Coach School doing business coaching. Okay. I recently also started a per diem clinic job. I'd mentioned this on a previous episode. I sent them an email, cold email, just asking if they were hiring. They were saying they were looking for a per diem employee. I'm like, that's perfect because that's what I'm looking to be. And we started. I wanted to have this flexible work option that would help fund all of the things I have going on. And when I talk to my clients about job searching, I teach them that we shouldn't just be looking to get hired and fit in. We also need to assess a job for what it should do for us in terms of supporting our goals. I developed my coaching program to teach negotiation because I believe this is the number one skill you need to accomplish goals, especially when they involve other people. And if you need others to cooperate with you, you need to learn to negotiate. This is like everyone, your kids, your spouse, your boss. You just need to be able to present your ideas in a collaborative way so that they could see how it's beneficial to them. You maintain what's beneficial to you. That's the collaboration. If you need your bosses to collaborate to help you get a higher salary, a promotion, which then allows you to have more vacation time, which then allows you to create more memorable life experiences, negotiation is that key. And in order for negotiation to be a collaboration, you have to think about what works for you and express that. More than likely, you're going to need to repeat that expression. Here's where I realized that I've fallen a little bit off track. I started the per diem job earlier than expected. I was scheduled to start last week, I think, and I ended up starting the week of President's Day because they were short-staffed. And as it happens, I'm listed with every locums company. And one of the companies reached out to ask me if I was able to fill in for this local clinic. And when I realized it was the same clinic I was going to do per diem at, I reached out to them directly and asked if they needed me to start earlier. And they were really grateful about it. The reason I did this, it was a win-win. I know I have a lot of stuff coming up. Sure, I will take an extra week and a half or whatever of income that helps me support my lifestyle. They get the coverage they need without having to pay the additional locum fees. If you are not familiar with locums work, the locums agency is like a temporary agency. They contract with a clinic to hire a doctor, which means that they charge maybe 30 to 50% on whatever the doctor's making. So if I'm making $100 an hour, God forbid, they would be making anywhere from 130 to 200. They'll charge like $200 an hour maybe to the clinic. So rather than having the clinic pay $200 an hour, if I go to them directly, they can just pay me the $100 an hour or a little bit more because really I'm saving them money. And then we go through that process. So anyway, I started early, which means no good deed goes unpunished. I skipped some of my own critical steps in setting the stage and expectations. As I mentioned, the decision wasn't all bad because it was a win-win. Like for me, the additional income, for them having coverage, there were both benefits on both sides, right? However, that meant the day that I was supposed to do orientation and all of these things that was not scheduled for another week and a half didn't actually end up happening because we ended up figuring things out in terms of me learning the EHR on the day of and all of these things. We've just been ripping and running ever since. And the lack of those foundational conversations is starting to show. I realize that there's two things happening. One, the criteria of the job itself. So the clinic role, they're starting to make increasing demands on my time. I hear hints that they want me to cover a full weekend. Listen, I don't give up my weekends for nobody. So That's already a non-starter. I was asked to cover a call this past Thursday, short notice, like the day of the doctor is going out of town internationally. And she's like, oh my God, can you please cover this call for me through the weekend? I just don't want anything to happen where they can't reach me. I'm like, okay, sure. But we didn't set a call rate before she left. And now we're going back and forth for some unknown reason to me because they want to say that it's included. I don't see how it can be included because I'm an hourly employee and we haven't even set a call schedule and we haven't agreed upon anything. So to say, oh, it's included is like, I don't work for free. There's just so much room for miscommunication when I don't follow my own process. It's good for me to have this experience because it makes me even more convicted that what I coach on is a necessity and it lets me reflect on why I agreed to do coverage without going through my own foundational steps. I did say this year that I'm giving up on people pleasing, and this is a perfect example of why, because I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't want her to feel unsupported. I definitely had feelings of, yes, I can totally do this. I got you. But they don't have me back because now they don't want to pay me. So we're going to have problems. The other reason that this is having an issue is in my own personal decision about taking this job. I also recently got a job in Qatar, the country in the Middle East, working again with Afghan refugees. Now, if you know anything about my story, you know that that was my first job out of training. I worked for a year in two different refugee camps and I loved it. I would actually love to pursue this opportunity and it pays me more than this clinic is paying me. And I realized that part of what I want to build in my life is the kind of flexibility that allows me to pick up and go. When I started coaching, this is what I had in mind. I started with my first clients while living in other places primarily, while I was working out of hotel rooms. And I wanted to create this business with the same kind of structure in that it gave me fulfillment by supporting other early career docs like myself, but also supported that jet setting lifestyle. So while the clinic role is flexible, they're offering me part time per diem, it doesn't allow for this kind of travel opportunity. What I want is to be able to pack my bags on short notice and experience once in a lifetime opportunities. An all expense paid trip, not just all expenses paid because they pay for travel and flight and accommodations, but then they also pay me for my work there. And the contract is 3 to 6 months. I mean, for me, that's just jelly. It's like the cream on top of things, right? I'm traveling, I'm getting paid to travel. That's always been my goal. So, understanding that now that I decided to do this per diem opportunity that I somehow convinced myself was going to be more stable, I have released that kind of flexibility. So there are two ways in which this is not aligning, which is that the expectations within the clinic itself are becoming problematic already, and I'm only 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in. And the plan that I have for my life, which is to be paid to travel, is not going to be met in this particular job. So what am I going to do about it? I don't know yet. I'm working on that. I will keep you guys posted. I do like the chance to have a job that's 20 minutes from my house. The patient population is fairly lovely. All of the problems lie within the way the clinic is run, the way it's structured, the way things are managed, the way that staff is managed, as per usual. That's like the usual for most medical clinics. How much of it am I going to tolerate? I don't know yet. Am I going to tolerate not being paid for call? Absolutely not. Am I going to tolerate giving up weekends? Absolutely not, because that defeats the entire purpose of this job for me, which is that I want to be able to travel. Already, they're giving me a lot of pushback on time off requests, which is funny because they don't pay for vacation. It's not paid vacation, it's unpaid time off, which means I can take it as I want. And I'm giving you months and months in advance notice. If you didn't hear that full story, you can watch my live that I did on Instagram this past week about it. I am really open and transparent. Yes, I think sometimes that's really risky because, of course, maybe an employer hears the podcast or they hear the live and they know that I'm talking about things real time. It can affect the decisions that's made, but also I'm willing to risk it because I think that discussing things as they go along provides a certain light of insight to you as my audience, to my clients, and I'm going to do it. I'm just doing it, right? So anyway, I don't know what the end result is going to be. I don't know how this is going to play out. I'm going to meet with the doctor who is the practice owner this week. And what will help me stay on track in this conversation is being aware of my goals. And so this is where the bucket list planning comes into place. You know, I love to give y'all a little fun activity in a podcast from time to time. And so this is what we're doing this week, which is trying to figure out what kind of lifestyles we want to live. That involves spending time dreaming, thinking about all the different categories that I mentioned before, which is career, personal, social, whatever, and then creating that list. I'm not going to share my full bucket list with y'all because it's long and very deeply personal, but I'm encouraging you to make that same kind of list that gets you excited. I want to emphasize that deciding what we want isn't always simple. So many of us are deriving lists based on what we think we can have. That's an entirely different kind of a list. I see this come up with my clients all the time. We start coaching and we start talking about what we want, and they are operating from the lens of what they think they should want, which is either some career in academic medicine and they're trying to climb this ladder, or a particular prestigious job at a prestigious institution. There's something that they think they should want, or there's something that they are on track to receive that other people are telling them they should want. And it may not actually be what they want. And so when we create lists from those places, it's almost like creating a list from a place of denial, because we are denying what we truly want based on what we think we might deserve or based on what we think we have earned to date. So I think it's helpful to think about a list of what you want, your bucket list, in terms of if there were no obstacles, if I didn't have to account for the criticisms or the judgments or the doubts, if I could have anything or I could do anything, what would I want? If you ask yourself that question from that lens, it allows you a lot more freedom than our normal structured, very logical, pragmatic approach. And I want you to do the dreamer version of it. I want you to feel a little bit scared, a little bit excited. I call it being scare-sighted, right? If your bucket list, if your dream list, your dream life doesn't freak you out a little bit, you're playing it way too safe. And I need you to step back and just allow yourself a full scope of freedom. Like if you could have, be, do anything. And that's how I create my lists. And I love to reread the list, and not from a place of, oh, these are all the things that I can't have, but from a perspective of what if it all works out? What if I'm able to do and achieve all of these things? Not from a space of this is everything I can't do or don't have. I literally get excited about what my life looks like as I'm working on these things, accomplishing these things, as I envision receiving these things. And I want you to be really specific about the list. I want you to get down into the nitty gritty. I don't want you to be like, oh, I just want to be rich. I want you to envision how much money do you need to have? And what are you going to do with that money? Right? For me, I eventually want to turn this podcast into a profitable podcast. I want to maybe do some kind of funding, add something. I'm going to work on that. That's on my list. Very specific, because I want to be rich. So how am I going to get rich? There's so many things. There's things I love doing. I love podcasting. I could monetize that. Great. I want to run a very successful coaching program. I have an annual goal for that. I want to retire early. Okay. In order to retire early, all of those financial goals have to be in, right? Okay. I want to be able to build a dream home, right? I want it to be environmentally friendly. I want it to be sustainable. I know exactly what that home looks like in my mind. In fact, I've even built a simulation of that. I want you to be that specific. Okay. I want to own a luxury vacation property. I think I even want to own, not I think, I know I want to own a tropical resort, probably in Caribbean. My grandfather used to own a beach, and I think that that's also in my vision. So I want you to be specific. I want you to be honest. I talked about that honesty, right? Which is not what you think you can get, not what you think you can earn, but truly being honest, not what society expects from you, being honest and writing down and keeping that list somewhere where you can see it so that you can reflect on it and keep building on it. Then, once you have this list, I want you to make a decision. Sometimes it feels like too much. Sometimes the things you want feel like too much. You can say right now, this is too big. This is too scary. That is a different decision. And it is a decision. You can say, I cannot do this right now because it feels overwhelming. That is a decision. That's a conscious decision. That's different from pretending you can't have it. You can say, this feels really hard, and I don't know that I'm in the space to do this kind of hard. That is a decision, totally different from pretending you can't have it. I also want you to remember that you probably have a fear of disappointing others. And so I want you to factor that in. If I were to make this choice, it would disappoint so and so. That's not something I'm willing to do right now. That's okay. At least you can say, this is the person that I'm factoring in this decision. Because if that scenario changes, then you know right away, I can now go and do this thing. Or let me figure out how to accommodate this person and this goal. You get so much closer to accomplishing your goal if you are identifying the specifics of it. Everything you do should be intentional. Deciding not to pursue a dream should be intentional. Living passively is what results in us living life by accident and having regrets when we hit a certain age or have those deathbed regrets. And that's what I want to avoid for you. So that is your assignment for this week. I want you to be creating a bucket list, keeping in mind what you want, what's possible right now versus what you may have to push off till the future, what would need to change for those things to become feasible. And as you're considering all of those things, evaluating your current life to see, are you on track for those things to become a possibility? Is there something that you can shift? Is there something you want to shift? And now that you have that as a foundation, you come, you talk to me, let's get on a call because we will discuss how to do those things and what is possible for you and what are the things that you can do to get what you want, because you want to get what you want out of life. You want to get what you want out of your job. You want to get what you want out of your career. You worked really hard to get here. And so to delay that, we're not doing that. We are on the path. So have a good week. I look forward to hearing from you guys. I want to hear some of what your bucket list things are. So feel free to message me and share those. I love hearing from you. Have a wonderful week. Bye.